This is CityCast Seattle. I'm Jane C. Hu, and here's what Seattle's talking about. As Seattleites continue to discuss the role of surveillance in our city, Mayor Katie Wilson held a town hall at Town Hall on Friday, and we'll break it down for you. And we've got good news for you with our weekly Good News Day Tuesday. But first, my regular dog walking loop in my neighborhood has at least 4 churches, and they are empty a lot of the time. There's this big parking lot that never has any cars in it except for on Sunday morning, and that is where I taught myself to skateboard. A few of them, however, seem like they're trying to use their spaces for other things, like a daycare, having community events, hosting multiple denominations in their space, and even serving as a CSA pickup space. Joining me is Joey Lopez, co-executive director of the Church Council of Greater Seattle, a group that is supporting faith communities in thinking about how to use their land and organizing for community justice. Welcome, Joey.
Glad to be here.
So what is the state of churches in Seattle? Like, how secular or religious are we versus the average city in the U.S.?
That's a great question. So I think one of the things when I first moved to Seattle about 8 years ago, my background's in faith-based community organizing. One of the things that I quickly was told by folks was get prepared. Seattle is pretty nominally religious. In preparation for today, I was looking at some of the numbers just to really know and not just kind of what does everyone think and what happens. And in 2014, Seattle was about 52% of the population identified as Christian in the sort of metro area. And about 10 years later, we're at 44% of the metro area identifying as Christian.
Interesting. So it's decreasing, it seems like.
It's decreasing, but it seems to be following sort of a national flow. The Pew Research Center recently put out a study that actually is suggesting that the decline in Christian faith community is kind of plateauing or leveling out. So I can't say, are we following the national average? But I do feel like there's a sense that we are following the national average.
Interesting. I mean, I think we could do like an hour-long podcast about why
100%.
That's the case. So let's maybe not get into that fully. But I know that you all are working on something called the Faith Land Initiative. Tell us a little bit about that and what are you all doing?
Yeah, so our Faith Land Initiative started about almost 10 years ago. It started as some really deep listening with faith communities across King County, not just in Seattle. And one of the trends that we were seeing is that there were these faith communities, predominantly faith communities or historically white faith communities that had underutilized land, that their buildings were built for their prime in the 50s and 60s. And that's just not where they are today in terms of membership and attendance. At the same time, there were both faith communities of color and community organizations that were led by BIPOC communities that were really curious about access to land and control of land in a way that would allow them to live into and fulfill their missions and visions more concretely. And so through those conversations, we realized that we really needed to have some conversations with faith communities to prepare them to start thinking about how to use their land differently. So some faith communities are thinking about how to create that more access to their neighborhood and the use of their buildings. Some faith communities are thinking about affordable housing and redevelopment. And some faith communities are also even thinking about releasing their properties. And so selling their properties or gifting their properties away. And so that's really what we've designed our Faith Land Initiative work around. It's supporting faith communities in deeper discernment around their mission and their vision and their values. And then how do they make decisions about the use of their land rooted in that. And I think for us at the Church Council, one of the things that we're really interested in through this work is helping people feel more connected to their land and to each other through this process, and really interested in decommodifying land here in Seattle. And so really thinking about and supporting faith communities in, as they're thinking about the use of their land, what is the way they can take it off the speculative market and make it more community-centric?
Absolutely. So it sounds like what you all do is really just try and lead these leaders through a conversation about what is possible. So affordable housing is one option that I've heard about, but what are the logistics of that? Like, are churches zoned for that, or does that require other changes in order to make it happen?
Yeah, so churches are not necessarily zoned for it. However, the state and the city have tried to make it easier for churches. And so the city of Seattle in 2021 passed legislation that essentially allows faith communities to go about 1 to 2 stories above their zoning without having to go through a rezoning process if they're developing affordable housing on their land. So an example is there's a faith community in Greenwood who is looking at tearing down their existing building and redeveloping. The first floor would be storefronts, ideally storefronts that support folks who would be living in the housing. The second floor would be the church is kind of retaining ownership of the second floor, and it'll be space for the faith community to meet, but also they're imagining what that space could look like in a way that could be utilized more easily by both the neighborhood and even the folks living in the housing. And then 3 through 9 would be affordable housing. And they have, I think their aim is about 75 units, and their goal is at least one of those floors being 3-bedroom homes to really focus on affordable housing for families.
Oh my gosh, amazing. Joey, you also mentioned that giving away the land, or I don't know if that might be a land back initiative or giving the land away to other groups. Have any of the churches or faith-based organizations you all have been working with done that? Like, what are some examples of what that might look like?
I think the community that's most known right now for giving land away is a couple years back, we worked with Seattle Mennonite Church. They were trying to figure out what to do with a 8-bedroom home that was in Capitol Hill. It was on 15th. And they'd owned the home for about 50 years. They purchased it for $30,000.
Oh my gosh.
And when they were ready to release the home, it was valued at around $2.5 million. And so the congregation ultimately decided and voted to give the home to a BIPOC community organization as a reparative act. And a huge part of this was they did some deep discernment around who they wanted to give the home back to. And they realized that because of where it is in Capitol Hill, it's actually really more the central district, where Capitol Hill has just kind of spilled over into the central district, that the home, they could not find a racially restrictive covenant for the home, but that it likely had a racially restrictive covenant because most of the homes around it had a racially restrictive covenants. And so they really wanted to either give the land back to an Indigenous-led organization or to a Black-led organization. And they really also wanted to be in relationship with the organization and not just this be a transactional act, but also were really committed to giving the land away, no strings attached. And so they ended up giving the land to the Trans Women of Color Solidarity Network, and it's in the process of becoming the House of Constance.
I guess to take a step back, for folks who might not know about these covenants, can you say a little bit about what role that has played in housing in Seattle over the decades?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we look at Seattle, anyone who is new to Seattle can really tell how segregated Seattle is, right? And part of that is rooted in this legacy of racially restrictive covenants, which were basically things attached to the deeds of homes that limited who could buy or purchase that home and who could live in that home. And it was limited around race and faith, right? So it was really to prevent Black people and Jewish people from living in different parts of the city. We see a lot of these in North Seattle. But like Capitol Hill had a lot of racially restrictive covenants, various parts of North Seattle. And it also has to do with like redlining, right? Like the lines that were literally drawn that financial institutions used to decide on who they would give a loan to based on where the property was. So that's a little bit about racially restrictive covenant. The University of Washington has a lot of great resources to help you find out if a home you're living in or own has had a racially, yeah.
So last question for you, Joey. When you start conversations with these groups, do they already know what they are thinking about doing and they just want help in enacting it? Or are people really just trying to figure out even what their options are?
Folks always come in with like an idea of what they want to move toward. And I think that that's healthy and good because that's like your kind of starts out as your North Star. I think one of the things that we really harp on through our cohort. Our cohort is about a 6-month cohort. There are 4 training sessions really rooted in community organizing skills and anti-racism principles. And one of the things that we really harp on is like, how do you have an idea of what you want to do and not like that idea not be fully formed? Because the reality is if you get so caught up in your idea, you may miss what other opportunities exist for your land. So if you're coming in, like, we want to develop 95 units of affordable housing on our land, and you realize that your land isn't actually ideal for developing 95 units of affordable housing, that can really kind of destabilize the process and really kind of like let the air out of the balloon, so to speak. And so one of the things that we try to get faith communities to really think about is like, what are some of the values behind why you want to develop 95 units of affordable housing? Like, how does that relate to who you are as a faith community and to who you want to be in your neighborhood? And then once those are surfaced and those are clear, now what's possible with your land? And so like, how do you make decisions about what to do next based on the values that were underneath your initial idea, but now can reinforce whatever's possible next?
Well, Joey, if people want to find out more about your work, where can they look?
Yeah, the best place to look would be our website, which is thechurchcouncil.org. And there's a whole page on our Faithland initiative and ways to get in touch with us if you're interested. We do a Faithland discernment cohort, which is kind of the key part of our Faithland initiative, once a year. And about 3 to 5 faith communities participate in that cohort every year. And so that's a great way to let us know you're interested if we don't already know. It's thechurchcouncil.org.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Joey.
Thank you, Jane. It was so wonderful being here.
And that is Joey Lopez, co-executive director of the Church Council of Greater Seattle. When we come back, we'll discuss Katie Wilson's town hall on surveillance. If you're enjoying the podcast, be sure to follow us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen so you never miss an episode. Also, leave us a little review. It's really helpful. And tell your friends about us. You can also get more local news and events delivered right to your inbox by subscribing to our newsletter. Just go to seattle.citycast.fm. And you can find us on Instagram, Blue Sky, and TikTok at CityCast Seattle. And you can watch full episodes of this show on YouTube. We are back, and here with me is Hannah Krieg, Seattle's reporter without a boss and founder of The Burner. Welcome, Hannah.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And creative producer Liam Billingham. Hi, Liam.
Hello.
So, on Friday evening, the evening of probably the nicest day that we've had so far this year, people packed into town hall for Mayor Katie Wilson's town hall on surveillance. Hannah, I know you were there. Were there any highlights from that event that stick out to you now, days later?
Oh my God. I mean, it cannot be understated how poorly Mayor Wilson did at that event, in my opinion. I understand she wanted to explain her decision to go through with an expansion of surveillance she initially opposed on the campaign trail. I have not really heard a logically satisfactory explanation of that decision, just because during this extended conversation, for the first 10 minutes, she didn't say a single positive thing about surveillance. And she was like, well, it's kind of murky how much this actually helps us solve crime. Insofar as it does help solve or prevent, it's kind of more about property crime, but then still kind of using, gun violence as the crux of her argument for surveillance. And if she's so unsure about the benefits of surveillance, it seems strange to me to do an audit that keeps most of the system on and then to audit it to see if it should be on at all. It doesn't seem like we're going towards that argument. It seems like we're just covering our ass. We're going to do this anyway. And we'll see if this audit comes back with this very narrow scope of it could get into federal hands, which we cannot anticipate what the federal government's going to do. So it was just I don't know. I mean, that's not really a highlight. That's maybe more of a summary of kind of just how frustrating it was to like kind of be in that room.
So what was the format? It sounds like I know that she was in conversation with executive editor of the South Seattle Emerald, Florangela Davila. Was she allowed a little portion to kind of present what she was talking about?
I think it was a 75-minute conversation. I think it ran long. And it was most like the first part was Florangela and Katie talking, or Mayor Wilson talking. That was kind of like, short burst questions from Florangela, then followed by long form explanations by Wilson. Then there was a Q&A section where members of the public could come up and ask her questions. And that was basically a bunch of people. I think everyone in the question line was against the surveillance expansion, and a bunch of people who had supported her during the campaign or were progressive aligning, probably belonging to like what you would imagine Katie Wilson's base being. Asking questions, getting at this like kind of flawed logic or like lack of logic. Also just kind of commenting in general about disagreeing. And it seemed like by the end of the night, she was getting pretty tired. But I think it ran over. I don't know. Time moves slow. Time moves weird in a town hall. I have no idea what happened. I just came out and all of a sudden it was night.
Were there any people there who were speaking in favor of the cameras?
No one spoke in favor of the cameras. There was one moment where Wilson said something to the effect of like, I don't want cameras on every street corner, but it makes sense to have some of them in high crime areas where Black and brown people live to like over surveil them, but whatever. And then someone said, woo! And that was it.
So it was that one person.
Yeah.
There's always one.
It was
you guys.
like a 40-year-old like white lady.
I do feel like I can imagine in that environment, maybe if you were there in support of cameras, maybe you got up for the Q&A and then you sat back down once you realized you were maybe in not friendly territory for that. So I was thinking about the news about the NYU policing project, who the city has partnered with to conduct an audit of the surveillance cameras. Wilson has said that the results of that audit will play into her decision-making process about whether to keep the cameras rolling and whether to go through with this expansion. On Friday, Chum News and the South Seattle Emerald co-published a piece that was referenced by Florangela, actually, that reported that the NYU policing project previously ran Axon. So Axon is the company that makes the surveillance camera. They previously ran Axon's AI ethics board, but they did drop out of that after Axon announced that they're going to have a project deploying armed drones in schools to combat mass shootings. Also, that the NYU policing project has gotten funding from the policing software company Mark 43, as well as the Charles Koch Foundation. And also last week, Publicola reported that Police Chief Sean Barnes was on the NYU Policing Project board, but that he's since stepped down. I'm trying to wrap my head around how much of a conflict of interest all of this actually is. And Hannah, Liam, I'm curious to hear from you all what you think of that.
It's a fucking farce. Why are we doing an audit with the program that obviously has a vested interest in continuing surveillance, is obviously in favor of this, and then to have this conflict of interest with Chief Barnes, even though I know he stepped down, and then to the satisfactory answer that she gives is like, well, if someone has a better group we can do it with, we're listening. And there was no RFP process to like a competitive bid process to have this audit with a different organization.
Right. Wilson had said that doing like a proper RFP would add months to this project, and that they're trying to get this done in a matter of months right now, it sounds like. What do you think of that?
Right, because they don't actually care about the results of this. The results are negligible because Wilson has failed, and she's been asked directly, she's failed to outline what this audit would have to find to make her think that she should go through with the cameras or she should kill the program. There's no line in the sand. And so whatever it says, the city will use to do what they want to do anyway, and we'll use that as cover. It's the classic Seattle process bullshit.
I feel like I'm really curious about like what her like non-mayor personal opinion of all of this is, because it feels like there's a lot of like coming from her at this point, right? And there's some part of me that feels like on some level she's like, I just have to do this, which feels like BS, but it feels like her personal opinion is, I don't know. I find her sort of approach to this very mysterious and confusing.
Well, to back up, she did inherit a lot of this from Bruce Harrell, right? This program was put in place under his administration. The expansion was announced under his administration. And during her campaign, she had said that she opposed the expansion. And I know a lot of folks who worked on her campaign have publicly expressed their disappointment with her decision to keep these cameras going right now. And she actually, I think, addressed that at the town hall, saying she had never said that she was going to explicitly turn all the cameras off, just that she was opposed to the expansion or wanted more data before continuing the expansion. Hannah, I'm curious how that was received and, you know, what folks said in response to that. I know you're in touch with some of those folks who used to work on her campaign also.
There was never, in her initial opposition to the surveillance expansion, there was never like a call for like more stakeholdering, more process. It was always like, I stand with the immigrant community, with the civil liberties advocates who are saying this is unsafe. And she made the argument that surveillance doesn't make communities safer, it puts them at risk. And if she actually ever genuinely believed that, I don't know like what could change her mind about that besides just getting like an earful of propaganda every day since she took the mayor's office. But when she said that, well, I didn't break a campaign promise. I mean, I think her old field director came up, Sochi, and she said, I think you're splitting hairs here. You were against surveillance. You took a principled stance against surveillance. And she didn't explicitly say, I would not go through with this thing. But it's like the cameras weren't even ordered when she took office. Like she could have stopped at any time if she was principally against surveillance. What might have happened, and what I think, she was campaigning with a bunch of people. Maybe people in her campaign wanted her to take this stance. She probably hadn't thought about it that much and was like, okay, whatever. And, you know, she's trying to make herself look different than Bruce Harrell, score political points. And then she didn't expect people to actually follow up with her and say, okay, well, now you have this opportunity to show your principled stance against surveillance. So that was not taken very well when she was like, I didn't actually break a promise. And then people booed and she's like, excuse me, listen. And it was very like Kamala Harris, I'm speaking. It actually triggered me pretty bad. I won't lie.
Does it count for anything though that she took the time to have this town hall?
Sure. She's getting into heaven. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think people appreciated that.
Is it going to change anything, do we think?
I think the stuff that will probably change her mind is like the continued pressure. I mean, I think this is part of it. It is really embarrassing to do a town hall and like you're fighting with your old field manager in front of everyone, and these organizers are going to continue to keep the pressure on. I think it's a long road ahead, and yeah, I don't know if this what will happen.
We'll see what she ends up doing here. It seems like one piece of news that came out of this that feels new is that it seems like her administration is maybe open to trying a different organization for this audit.
I feel like she's just like bored and impatient with this and doesn't want to talk about it anymore a little bit.
I think so. And I think that's fair. I don't think she really gave a fuck about this very much on the campaign. And honestly, I think a lot of the people who are advocating like on the progressive side, this is not their main issue. And they're upset that they have to talk about this thing that felt like, I don't think many people who voted for her like entirely because of surveillance. That's not like the biggest gap between Harrell and Wilson. But I agree that I think there's just like a frustration about this, and she just wants this to be over.
Well, I don't know that we're going to see a lot of movement on this particular issue for another few months until that audit is complete. However, it does seem like there's a possibility that we might see some different choices in how that audit is conducted. And it seems like for sure there are going to be a lot of eyes on that audit and what the results of that will be. Let's move on and take a break. And when we come back, let's talk about some good news. All right, it is Tuesday again, which means it is time for Good News Day Tuesday.
Ooh, I like
And
the theme song. This is good. We gotta go further with this.
Liam has been all about the theme songs lately. Maybe you can pen us an official one.
I will.
for
I'll
this
do it.
segment.
You got it.
But Hannah, do you have any good news for us?
Oh, I'm glad you started with me because mine's basic, so hopefully I'm not stealing anyone's. Yesterday, Governor Bob Ferguson signed the millionaire's tax into law, and so the last step in the process at Olympia, and now there'll probably be a court challenge and like a repeal initiative, but still like a big day for the progressive coalition.
Why did Ferguson wait so long to sign it? It has been at least a couple of weeks that he's been off on a signing tour of other bills.
I think they get a few weeks to do it, so he can do it whenever. I mean, governors have definitely like strategized in the past to like wait on this kind of stuff because there is like the threat of a initiative to repeal it, and so this shortens the signature gathering window, which is what like Representative Jim Walsh will say is why he did it. Like, and honestly, probably. Like, I would do that too.
What about you, Liam? What's your good news?
Mine's very basic, way more basic than Hannah's. And then I have a one very specific me thing, which is it feels like spring is here. I woke up this morning. It wasn't pitch black outside. Baseball is officially started. And like, I'm not the world's biggest baseball fan, but I like when it's happening because that means it's spring into summer.
It's true.
And I'm jumping on the Mariners hard. This is going to be a good year. So
Get
I'm excited
on that
about
bandwagon, baby.
that. Yeah, that bandwagon, baby.
It's going all the way to the World Series.
Again, it's going to happen. And then very specifically, SIF is doing a Martin Scorsese retrospective right now. And on Wednesday night, I'm going to see Age of Innocence with Daniel Day-Lewis and Michelle Pfeiffer, which is one of the most beautiful movies about yearning. It takes place during the Gilded Age. It's a masterpiece. I'm very excited to see it on the big screen.
About yearning.
For the first time. I want to yearn in a movie theater, and this is going to allow me to.
Nothing says spring like yearning,
It
actually.
doesn't. I think that's 100% true. So here we go.
Yeah,
I'm
we're in
excited
the
for
streets.
that.
We're yearning.
I'm going to go yearn in public.
Oh,
I got 3 good pieces of news. One is sports related. Hillary Knight is back for the Torrent. She was out for about a month. She was recovering from a lower body injury after winning a gold medal at the Olympics. I actually was at the Torrent game on Sunday. I can't say the Torrent looked great. love the Torrent. I wonder if they've just kind of been in disarray since Knight was out and are adjusting to her coming back. But exciting to see her out on the ice again, and she was looking good. 2, of course, the Cross Lake Connection opened. Having that as item 2 feels appropriate since it was the 2 line that opened. Ha 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 ha. Okay.
Oh,
I
nice.
really loved seeing everyone's photos, videos from that event. It was amazing to see that many people from our community out and excited about riding this train. I saw an enormous line of people standing around just to get a little stuffy of Boop. And I mean, I would be in that line if I had been able to make it to that event. It is my goal in life to get a Boop, and I will say that on the show over and over again until it happens. To hold
Using
myself
your
accountable.
platform for your own good, Jane. I can't with this.
I'll stand in the line. I'm going to stand in the line and hope that I get a Boop.
Okay, yeah, sure you are. No, I'm kidding.
But if anyone wants to send me a Boop or tell me
See,
how to
I
get
knew
one,
it.
I wouldn't say no. That's the one bribe I would take. Okay, and then the last piece of good news is that WashDOT's e-bike rebate program launched yesterday. So you can get between $300 and $1,200 toward an e-bike, depending on your income. So that program was funded at $5 million for the 2023-2025 biennium, and they upped it for the 2025 to 2027 biennium to $7 million. So clearly it was really successful last time around, and exciting that if you're looking for an e-bike, this is the time. I mean, the weather's getting nice again, and if you want to get around town without having to think about how you're going to pedal up all those hills with all of your might, an e-bike sounds like a great option. And it's just cool that our state is trying to incentivize people to transport themselves around in any way besides a car.
I want to get a bike.
You should get a bike.
I know I should. We'll see.
The classic I want to get a bike conversation.
Yeah, that
I
ends
want
with
to.
we'll
I
see.
should.
I should.
I don't know if I'm gonna though. I don't know if I'm gonna.
I stopped by Recycled Cycles. Shout out to them. I love that place. On Saturday, I was trying to get a little rack for the back of my commuter bike, but like everybody was there. And it was really fun overhearing all the conversations between people because a lot of them were like, I haven't been on a bike since I was a kid. Or a lot of them were getting bikes for their kids, which was really sweet. So, Liam, even if you haven't been on a bike in a while or haven't had a bike in a while, you should get one.
Okay, I will. Maybe.
Maybe. All right, I'll work on that. That's all for today here at CityCast Seattle. Hannah Krieg, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And Liam Billingham, get that bike.
Yes, ma'am. I will do it. I promise.
I'm your host, Jane C. Who, apparently a ma'am now, which is horrifying.
I'm getting in so much trouble for calling people ma'am lately. I'm going to stop.
Don't do it. Just simply don't.
Yes, ma'am.
Listeners, we want to hear from you. You can send us your news tips, your questions, your hot goss. Oh, yeah, your thoughts about what kind of bike Liam should get by sending an email to seattle@citycast.fm. You can also text us or leave us a voicemail on the CityCast hotline at 206-880-3931. Until next time, see ya, Seattle.